Welcome aboard Just Jets with your captain, Matt O'Leary. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Hello and welcome to episode number 44 of Just Jets. What's going on? I am Matt O'Leary here for some Jets therapy. Almost there. 3 more games to go. We have a lot to get to today, but before we get started with all of that, I wanted to talk to you about MANSCAPED, our sponsor. Listen, fellas, 2020 sucked. It's almost New Year's, which means new balls with our sponsor, MANSCAPED. MANSCAPED is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, offering precise engineered tools for your family jewels and helping over 2 million men all over the world get rid of unwanted hair. So if you let yourself go during quarantine in 2020, I mean, hand up, I gained a little bit of quarantine pounds. You can get back right, manscape yourself up, clean yourself up, and get back on track with my promo code JETS20. It gets you 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Once again, promo code JETS20 for 20% off and free shipping. Let's jump into the episode today because we do have a lot to get to. I'm going to do thoughts from Seattle game quickly, thoughts on the Rams, and then I want to get into week 17 and the coaching hire because there is going to be a coaching hire in the near future. So let's start with Seattle. Overall, atrocious game. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. 40-3. I said 30-10. I thought it was going to be a blowout, but it was just the Jets had no chance. Of course, Geno Smith comes into the game at the end for the cherry on top of the awful game that was. If you're pro Tank, you probably loved it. And listen, I'm pretty much numb at this point to these games, which sucks. And I'm hoping that I'm not numb next year. But at this point in we're week 14, it's not really moving the needle one way or the other what happens in these games. But from Seattle itself, we saw bad Darnold again. He did not have a turnover, but oh my God, there were 3 balls that should have been picked off. One, he threw directly into Jamal Adams' chest. Like, it could not have been an easier interception. I could have made the catch. If I could have intercepted the ball, that's how you know that it was an easy play, and Jamal Adams should have had it. There was a batted ball at the line of scrimmage, and there was another one later in the game that probably should have been picked off as well. On the flip side, at least, you want to go positive spin zone. Marcus May had a beautiful interception. And yes, I absolutely want to bring Marcus May back for next year. I think he's been really good on this Jets team. I'm confident in him and potentially Ashton Davis on the other side as well going into 2021. I think you can get by with those guys as your cornerback, as your safety duo, excuse me. As far as the other notes from the game, offense was just deader than dead. It was awful. It was a very on-brand Adam Gase on the road performance, and they were thoroughly outclassed by a much better coach, a much better team in the Seattle Seahawks. And when you look at the Jets defense, I don't think Greg Williams was necessarily the issue there. They went ultra-conservative, and the Jets have no pass rush, which really exposed that secondary. Doesn't excuse the cover 0 call at the end there. And yes, Greg Williams was an extremely flawed coach. But as I said, I think this would help the tank, and it's seeming to do just that in an awful performance from the defense. Nobody really stood out. I thought Quinnen had a quiet game, I would say, on the stat sheet. There were a couple of plays on film where he looked like he stood out a little bit. And other than that, there wasn't really a whole lot going on there in this contest. It was a blowout. It was over early, which is exactly what you want to see. 3 more games to go. Last thing on this game before we get to some quick thoughts on the Rams. It's very difficult for me, and I said this in the postgame, but it's very difficult for me to get bent out of shape over the refereeing in this game. There were a couple borderline calls against the Jets, and again, it's very difficult for me to feel one way or the other on these calls because I'm so numb at this point. Do I care about not getting a pass interference call against was it Bryce Hall? No, I'm mixing myself up. Okay, there was a Bryce Hall a borderline pass interference. I thought that one was legit. The Marcus May one, I did not think was a penalty, and then there was an obvious pass interference call against the Jets receiver. Could have been Crowder or Perryman, and they did not call it, and it was probably a good thing because it would have put the ball inside the 5-yard line. So, again, it's very difficult for me to get bent out of shape over these losses right now, and the things that happen. Like, the referees are so far down on the list of things that I care about on this team, or that it impacts this team going forward. It doesn't matter. Get through the next 3 games and let's go. As for the Rams, which is next up on the 13 or 3 games remaining, we've played 13. I fully expect a blowout. I do not think this game is going to be close. The Rams have a phenomenal defensive line. They are going to make this Jets offensive line look bad, especially on the interior. I don't trust the interior of this offensive line. McGovern's gotten a little bit better, but the guard position I still think is a weak one. And I think this is going to be exposed against the Rams. And, I mean, let's face it, just Sam Darnold hasn't shown to be able to do enough this year in order to have any sort of a shot to stay in this game. And then you just look at the other side of the coin with Sean McVay calling plays against this secondary, against this defense, against this team that gets no pressure after the quarterback, with Frank Bush as the defensive coordinator. This one could get ugly real quick. I think the Jets score more than 3 points this week. Maybe they score 13, but I'm going to say 37-13 is your final score, as I have zero goose egg faith in Sam Darnold and Adam Gase being able to go on the road and win a game against a phenomenal team in the Rams. They have been tremendous this year, coming off a big win. Extra time for McVay to prepare also, because they played on Thursday Night Football, so he has an extra 3 days to prepare for this awful, awful Jets team and this awful Jets defense right now. I am not in the least bit scared for the Jets ruining the tank in this game. And really, I'm not worried about the Jets ruining the tank in the last 3 games, which is kind of a good transition to the next topic that I wanted to get into in the monologue before we get into the voicemails. A lot of people, and my good buddy, actually Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7, yesterday had a video about Week 17 and how he thinks that there's a chance that Bill Belichick could start Jarrett Stidham, and that the Jets end up winning and ruining their tank in Week 17. Love Ryan. Love the guy. Was on his show last night. The best. I do not agree with that take. I don't like that take. And I'll tell you why. I just talked about having zero confidence in the Jets being able to go on the road and win a game against Sean McVay. I don't think the Jets could beat Bill Belichick and Jarrett Stidham. You want to say, okay, Cam Newton's not going to play, and then the Jets will win that game because Cam's not playing? I have zero faith that this team could do anything on the road. All their games this year have been terrible on the road. The only remotely close game on the road was the Chargers game, and they choke every single game away. Every single one. Let's look at the other games. Buffalo in the first game of the year was terrible. There was a couple garbage time points, but that was pretty much it. This past week against Seattle, terrible. Against Kansas City, awful. Against the Dolphins, shut out. You can go down the list. We're going to face the Rams this week. That's going to be a tough matchup. Who else did you see on the road? We're going to see the Browns are going to be at home, so that's not another one. But in these games this year that they've had to play, on the road, Indy on the road was brutal. I'm just thinking of them as they come to me at this point. But name a game outside of the Chargers where it's like, okay, the Jets have been in this game. And that's been the Adam Gase way for his entire career. This guy can't coach on the road to save his life. They beat a Buffalo team who was playing their third stringers last year on the road. Barely. And that was with good Sam Darnold. That was with a good Sam Darnold. This quarterback play that the Jets have gotten has been so bad that I really don't have faith in them going to beat anybody. And to make matters better, I guess, for yourself, if you're rooting for the tank, which most of us are at this point, I really think Jacksonville wins the game with Gardner Minshew starting. I have that Chicago game circled on my calendar, so I don't think it's going to matter going into Week 17 because, yes, the idea that the next 2 weeks against the Browns and this upcoming week against the Rams should be blowout losses. I really don't see a way right now that the New York Jets play a competitive game on the road against New England. And people are going to say, oh, well, Bill Belichick's not going to want to play Trevor Lawrence for the next decade. Well, yes, I'm sure he would rather not have to play him. I think he can't stand the Jets enough to the point where he wants that 0-16 on the New York Jets. He wants to be the guy who says, the Jets are 0-16 because I beat them in the last week of the year. Even if it was with Jarrett Stidham. He is that good of a coach, and he'll find a way to beat Trevor Lawrence. Or attempt to beat Trevor Lawrence. If that's the case, if the Jets do end up drafting Trevor Lawrence, then that's his mindset. He's not going to worry about who they draft. He's not. He's worried about what's at the task at hand. He only cares about his team and himself. And I'm still fairly confident that he can find a way to win with Jarrett Stidham, who I don't think is a good quarterback at all. Don't get it twisted. But the play that the Jets have gotten out of Sam Darnold this year, the play they've gotten out of their defense this year, and now without Greg Williams, and the inability at the coaching position from Adam Gase has me not worried yet. I am absolutely not worried yet about this game. Unless something crazy happens in Week 17, then maybe we'll start to worry. But I don't think that game is going to be as close as what people are anticipating. A lot has to depend on what happens over the next couple of weeks with the schedule in terms of the Patriots and what Week 17 is looking like if they have a shot at the playoffs. But even so, even if they lose their next two games, I think they're going to go into Week 17 and beat the Jets. So I don't think we have to worry. I think it's 0-16, which brings me to my final point before we get into those voicemails that I love answering so much. Getting the coaching hire right. This past week, again, we had another example of Josh Allen balling out and beating a really good Pittsburgh Steelers team. And I made a video earlier this week comparing and contrasting what happened with Sam Darnold and Josh Allen after they were drafted. And to the Bills' credit, they did everything right for their young quarterback. They had a great offensive coordinator in place, a really good head coach in place. They brought in a lot of talent on the offensive line at the wide receiver position, and they drafted well. They made life super easy. The Jets didn't. They did not draft well. Mike McCagnon was a terrible drafter. They started to draft well this year. I would say their first two picks looked great. I will give the Jets that. But they didn't draft well in 2018 and 19. They missed in free agency. And on top of that, they hired the worst coach that you could potentially hire for your young quarterback. Sam Darnold has regressed terribly under Adam Gase. Terribly. To the point where they're going to have to move on from him because he's so shell-shocked right now. And that's why it's so important for the Jets to get this next hire right. And to pair Trevor Lawrence or whoever you end up with at the quarterback next year, because I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to be Sam Darnold, that you can develop them to the best of your ability. Because we see a team in the division who was at a very similar point to the Jets in 2018 are probably the second or third best team in the AFC. I would say second. Chiefs 1, Bills 2, Steelers 3. Those are my top three teams in the AFC. That's the reality. And coaching plays a bigger impact in the NFL than I think people are leading themselves on. Yes, talent matters. Talent absolutely matters. But coaching is very important. We have the worst coach in football right now with the New York Jets. And he will also, that's another thing. I don't want to go into complete other and derail this show, and I don't get to any voicemails. He is going to be fired after the Patriots game. I promise you. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat Week 17 as a win. And don't sweat Adam Gase coming back. Neither of those things are going to happen. Now let's get to those voicemails. First up, Jeff in Cali wants to talk about the NFL draft.
Hey, Matt. This is Jeff from Cali calling in. So, Sunday night, don't really want to talk about the game because what is there to really talk about? It was ridiculous. I want to talk about the draft. So now I was thinking the weapons and the offensive, the receiver class, and then you have, Kyle Pitts and stuff like that.
Right.
All those guys in this draft seem to be really top-heavy, right? Because you have your Jamar Chases, you have your Devonta Smiths, you have your Rondale Moores. And then after that, you kind of see a drop-off. I mean, you still can get value in, the late mid to late 20s, which is where I'm assuming our Seattle pick is going to come from. So I was brainstorming this little this trade scenario here. So Darnold, he's not going to fetch a first. He's probably not even going to fetch a second. But what if we use him as trade bait to move up? We call the Chicago Bears, right? Say they're probably around like 10 to 12. Sounds about fair.
Okay.
We say, hey, Matt Nagy, if you're still there, how about you give us this pick? We'll give you 24, 25, whatever the Seattle pick ends up being, and Sam Darnold to move up this 12th pick. And at that 12th pick, we take one of those elite receivers or a Kyle Pitts. We take a Devonta Smith. We take a Jamar Chase. We take someone who happens to be there, because I don't think – and we get one of those elite number one type receivers / playmakers for our future quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. We can wait, right? But then you're gambling, right? Because it's like you can get some of the later guys, and there's a bunch of them that'll go in the late first round, early second, but none like those upper echelon of guys. So yeah, let me know what you think of that scenario. Thanks. Bye.
Jeff, you sold me. I love it. It's outside the box. It's different, but I like it. And I agree with you. I think Chicago's probably picking somewhere around 10's probably pretty fair if you had to estimate where they're going to end up. And I could totally see Sam Darnold getting traded to Chicago. It's an NFC team. Their quarterback situation's in flux. I think it makes sense. I really do. And if you value Darnold as maybe a third-round pick, if that's, from my understanding, it sounded like that's where you were at, then that would make sense in a pick swap to drop back, 10 spots, 15 spots, and you get a quarterback, and you still get a pick in the first round. Interesting. That's interesting, Jeff. I like that. I haven't thought of something like that, really. You would figure, okay, you trade Darnold first. I was never really sold on the second and a fifth or second and a fourth, but if it was just a second even, then I'd be like, okay, you just, you get that. You take 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and go from there. But if you make it 2 picks in the top 15, holy smokes, now we're talking. I'm on board with that. Thank you, Jeff, for calling in. I like it. Outside the box thinking. This is good on Just Jets. Let's get to Phil, who has some reaction about this past week.
Hey, Matt. It's Phil, Brooklyn, New York. Hope you're doing well. By the tone of my voice, I'm clearly disappointed.
I get it, Phil.
It's summertime, and I'm getting excited for football, doing fantasy leagues and all this. I'm getting excited for the Jets, and I'm done with it, man. I really am. I've been a Jets fan for 7, 8 years. My quarterback has been Geno Smith, Fitzpatrick, now Sam Darnold, who clearly hasn't worked out. Threw for 3 interceptions. Well, he didn't throw for 3 interceptions, but
should have been 3 picks.
3 interceptions. I'm done with it, man. I really am. Like I said before, they don't deserve us. They don't deserve people like you. They don't deserve people that make Jets content and take the time out of the day to do this cool stuff. They don't. Adam Gase is appalling.
Awful.
Just horrible.
Awful.
Play calling was bad. Defense was bad. Offense was bad. Everything was bad. I'm excited for the draft, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Trevor Lawrence.
I'm pumped, man.
I'm done waiting for stuff. I really am. I think it's not fair to us Jets fans. It's really not. And then, Jamal Adams saying his sack on Sam Darnold to make it a new record or something like that, of course.
I don't care. That doesn't bother me. I don't care about Jamal.
I wish we'd go back to next year. 7-9 would be great. But we're going 0-16 this year, most likely. I am worried for the Patriots game.
We just talked about that.
I'm worried about that. But I especially feel bad for the players, man. I do. I don't think they deserve this. I don't. They play their heart out every game, and they fall short. And it's not. I don't blame them. I try to, but I don't. You have 3 undrafted players or 3 7th-round players on the field, and they're getting torched. It's not their fault. I don't think it is. I don't think they're not experienced. But Last season, I mean, the refs were horrendous. I mean, just like you said, if it was a season where we were actually playing for something, I would be very, very upset. But it's whatever. I can't really think of anything else. I'm pretty disappointed. Yeah, like I said, I try to get excited for the season. I do get excited. I keep thinking that we're gonna get 6, 7 wins, something like that, maybe even higher, and stuff like this happens. So, stay safe, Matt. And also the kicker situation. Oh my God,
Castillo stinks.
Nothing is going right, is it?
I get it, Phil. I really get it. I do. It's frustrating. It is. And I agree. At this point, really, all you can do is look forward to that NFL draft and free agency. I feel like that's all we do as Jets fans. It's like, okay, the regular season or the season comes around and it's like, we got to suffer through this. Most times it's got to suffer through a 4-12, 5-11, 6-10 season. And then you get to play the offseason game all over again. Expectations are high or higher. Everyone says, okay, this seems like a 8-8, 9-7 team. Bam, another 4-12, 5-11 season, but this time's just an extra bad year. So next up is Nick from Atlanta, wants to talk about Sam's trade value.
Hey Matt, it's Nick from Atlanta. I'm just calling because I'm getting very concerned about Sam's trade value, and I hate talking about it for the kid. I love the kid. I think he's a great guy, but I mean the tape he's putting out is it is putrid. I mean, it is terrible. He looks broken in every way, mentally and physically. I mean, the guy's taken sack by just running out of bounds like he's done all year. I mean, he threw basically what should have been 3 interceptions yesterday. I mean, God, he is really playing poorly. And I wonder. I mean, we're all counting it like it's a second-round pick. Is it? I mean, at this point, I don't see a team giving up more than a third. I mean, I think that's stretching it. I mean, this kid is just broken. I know Adam Gase is a large reason, but it's just I'm getting worried. I want to know if you still think he's worth a second. I mean, I can't think of a team that would say, yeah, no, let's throw a second round pick because the kid's coming up on the 4th year of his contract. I mean, yeah, I'm worried, man. Because I really want that second. That would be a huge asset for us. So anyway, just want to get your thoughts. Love the show. Go Jags, baby.
Go Jags. Duval. Yeah, I understand why people are saying, okay, the value obviously has to come down. You would assume because of how poorly he's played. But my rebuttal to that will be that teams always overpay for the quarterback position. And I think if it turns out to be a third, would I be completely stunned? No, I wouldn't be completely stunned, but I really still think that Joe Douglas is going to be able to get a second. I'm not saying multiple picks. I saw a rumor today on Twitter. Forgive me, I can't remember from who it was. I think it was someone from NFL Network. Said that he believes the Jets could get a 2nd and 4th or a 2nd and 3rd for Sam Darnold, which that sounds like a lot. I would love it, obviously, but I just think it's going to end up being a singular 2nd round pick. I know that sounds like a lot based on how he's played this year, but someone's going to bet that they could fix him. I really think that someone's going to think that they could fix him, and maybe he does play well. Would I be completely stunned if he turns it around in San Francisco, Chicago, Carolina, Pittsburgh, someone like that? Not really. The talent is there. He's just very broken right now, and I can't bet on the Jets fixing it when you have Trevor Lawrence staring you in the face, or Justin Fields, or Zach Wilson staring you in the face. So thank you for your question. Let's go to Ben, who's got a mock draft for us. I love mock drafts. It's mock draft season. Let's get into it.
Hey, Matt. It's Ben from Jersey. So I saw the video of your mock draft the other day, and I thought I would just give a little bit of my own 3-round mock draft. So assuming we get the first overall pick, obviously we go Trevor Lawrence. No explanation needed there. Best prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck. Obvious pick there. So next pick at the Seattle pick, which I'm pretty sure is around like the 25, 26 range right now. I would love to go edge rusher, and that man right there is Patrick Jones. He's been amazing for Pittsburgh this year, and even if we do send
I
a
like
big name
Jones.
guy, I think he will be definitely an amazing fit next to whoever that is, and it'll help free up more holes for Quentin Williams.
Agree.
At our second round pick, which is sitting at 33, obviously, I would go cornerback, and for the cornerback, I would go Sean Wade.
Okay.
I felt like he would be like an early first round project at the beginning of the year, but with the rise of guys like Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn, I feel like his value's gone to like maybe late first, early second. So if we can snag him here at the beginning of the second round, I feel like that would do wonders for us. And the next pick is going to be from our potential Sam Darnold trade. So I'm trading him to the Colts for the 54th pick.
Okay.
With that pick, I'm taking interior offensive lineman Zion Johnson from Boston College.
Okay.
So Zion Johnson, he was unranked coming out of Davidson, but since he transferred to Boston College, he's been rising up the draft board. The interior offensive line has been nothing short of a disaster.
Agree.
Lewis and Ben Rowan aren't going to be there, and if we sign someone like maybe Joe Tooney and then Johnson, you're looking at an offensive line that can definitely open up some holes.
Yes.
For whoever the running back is, who we'll get to in a second, and definitely help Trevor Lawrence be able to get more time in the pocket and make plays. So our first third-round pick, I'm going to go someone that you said earlier, Kenny Gainwell from Memphis. In my opinion, he's the third best back in the class. And I feel like he has the potential to be like an Alvin Kamara or Kareem Hunt. So if we can get him there, I feel like that's definitely a dub. Final pick is Diomoro Lennar from Oregon, the cornerback.
Okay.
I mean, the cornerback
don't know enough
spot
about him.
Might be your weak position right now. It's awful. We definitely need to draft it. Cornerback at least twice in this draft. He has good coverage skills. He's good in zone and man. And I feel like that will just be a good pick for depth. Maybe not. He won't start right away, but something that will build on. I just want to see what you think about my 3-round mock draft compared to yours. And right now, let's remember JAGS, Jags.
Let's go, Jags.
Thank you. Love the show.
Thank you. Love it. Love these mock drafts. I don't know enough about that last corner that you mentioned. I love the other picks. Love them. And I don't know enough about him to come up with an opinion on the last guy, so I like the idea of doubling up on corner. I will say that, especially that early. You have a ton of picks. Edge covered, outside of quarterback covered, edge covered, corner covered, interior offensive line. And add Thuney in free agency. I like it. I'm curious to see, because you didn't name a wide receiver, so I'm assuming where you, in your plan, you'd like to sign one in free agency, which is fine. I think you can go that route. I think you can. I would like to address one in the mid-round, so maybe like round 3 on a wide receiver and sign a wide receiver as well, because I'm not necessarily sold on bringing back Rashad Perryman. If he's your 4th wide receiver and you decide to bring him back, okay. I'm not going to break the bank for him to overpay for a number 4 wide receiver, but if you get him on a cheap deal, I'm not opposed to bringing him back. But I also don't mind adding through the draft and getting some talent in here as well through the NFL draft. And I trust Joe Douglas evaluating talent. So I do like that draft a lot, Ben. I like it. Next up is Travis. Talking week 17 with Travis. Let's get into it.
Hey, Matt. Travis from Ohio. Hey, buddy. Colin Cowherd this week said the Jets are easily going to get stomped against the Rams and the Browns. I mean, it's just going to happen. And then last week of the season, we got the Patriots. And his theory was that Belichick will sit Cam Newton and play Stidham and have a built-in excuse to, if they drop the game to the Jets like they almost said last time, to not have to face Trevor Lawrence twice a year, hopefully for the next 20 years.
Hope so. Hope it's 20.
Here's what I think. To counteract that, hear me out.
All right.
Like, we haven't played James Morgan all season. And if we're 15-0, we have the better opportunities trump Belichick saying they're going to bench Cam to see what they got and sit them, to do the same thing to see what we got in Josh Morgan. And we come out with that before they can come out with them benching Cam, and then we lose the game by 50. Which I hate saying out loud because I'm a Jets fan and I'm not okay with losing, but more than okay with Trevor Lawrence. So just your thoughts. Again, I don't want to talk about this stupid game this past week. Seattle kicked our asses.
Yes, sir.
And it's happened every week this season. So just a different topic. Again, love you, buddy. Stay healthy. Go Jags. Bye.
Let's go Jags. I'm not opposed to the idea of playing Morgan. I'm really not, because I don't think he's ready, so I don't think it's going to go very well. But also, it does make sense. So if you are buying into that Morgan can be the long-term backup, then let's see it. Let's see what you have in Week 17 against an NFL defense. That's essentially going to be a preseason-like game. There was no preseason this year. Week 17 against two teams who aren't going to be in the playoffs, that's essentially as close to a preseason game as you can get. Maybe it's a half. Maybe give him a half. If he throws 2 picks in the first half and doesn't look like he's ready, okay, put Darnold back in for the second half. And I have news for you. I don't think Sam Darnold is going to be able to go on the road in New England and win a game with how he's playing right now. I really don't. Even when Sam Darnold was at his best, he wasn't able to go on the road to New England and win a game. Sorry. Unfortunately, that's the way it's going right now. So Travis, I agree with you in the sense that I would like to see Morgan at some point this year, sure. But I don't think it's going to matter because I don't think Sam's going to play well enough to keep them in that game, even if Jarrett Stidham's playing quarterback. Thank you, as always, for checking in, Travis. Hope you're doing well. Eric from Long Island is next, wants to get into free agency.
Hey, Matt, it's Eric from Long Island. I'm going to try to leave you a faster voicemail than the first one. With free agency, I'd like to talk about that and the draft. I would like to sign Corey Davis. I think he's better and younger than Allen Robinson. He's not better, but he'll be cheaper, and he's very good, and he's fast. Then I would like to get Brandon Triff out of Washington, the all-pro guard. And you want an edge rusher, never mind taking one with that second pick. We need to solidify the offensive line and get another receiver. That needs to be the focus after Lawrence.
Okay.
We want the edge rusher. We need to go out and get Shaq Barrett. We know what we're getting with him. It's not maybe a Vernon Golson or Quentin Copel situation. We know we're getting a stud. He's every bit as good as John Abraham was. We'll have the best pass rusher since John Abraham. I'm wondering if they would have enough money to sign all 3 of those guys.
I would think so.
And I'm wondering maybe with the second pick in the first round, if maybe we could get Jalen Waddle, or I also like Rondale Moore a lot. And with the first pick in the second round, I would like Trey Smith or Jalen Mayfield. Thank you, and go Jags.
Go Jags. I love the mock off season. Corey Davis, if you're going to do everything that you did, I'm fine with Corey Davis because you're adding another big wide receiver in the draft as well for backup. And he is good. You're right. And he is going to be cheaper than Allen Robinson. And if you're adding a premier guard and a premier edge, and maybe you go on the cheaper route at wide receiver for still a solid receiver in Davis, then okay. I think that makes sense. I like that. And I think that's a smart way to look at it if you're the New York Jets, because they're not going to be able to go out and sign the top free agent at every single position. They're not. They do have an advantage because they're going to have one of the most amounts of cap space in the entire league, and not a lot of teams are going to be able to outbid them. But it's not like you're not going to be able to go, okay, I want Allen Robinson, and I want Joe Thuney, and I want Bud Dupree, and then maybe we'll add another wide receiver and Curtis Samuel, and then we're going to add Aaron Jones. It's like, we're going to pump the brakes for a second. You're not going to sign every single big marquee free agent. You're just not. So I think that's a smart way to look at it. Next up is Marcus in Minnesota, and he wants to check in with what my first 3 moves would be after the season.
Hey, Matt. It's Marcus out of Minnesota. It's first time calling. Love the show. Keep up the good work. It's great to watch during this terrible, 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 terrible season of football. Anyway, so let's say the Jets get the first pick. They get Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
What are your first 3 moves that you would make immediately, or like as far as value? Offense coordinator, head coach, what have you. Players, free agents, drafting. What are the first 3 moves that you would make once you know that you have Trevor Lawrence? Anyway, keep up the good work. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. First things first, you're firing Adam Gase the second after the game. On Black Monday, you fire Adam Gase, and I'm hiring a coach. Go with different. I like a lot of names, but let's go with Matt Campbell. We'll go Matt Campbell. For offensive coordinator, we'll go Mike McDaniel from the 49ers. I like him a lot. I've talked about him a lot. Check out my video on the offensive coordinators. Defensive coordinator, maybe we could get someone like Dan Quinn, or he could bring his defensive coordinator from Iowa State for all I care. That doesn't really matter a whole lot to me. In terms of free agency, I'll do this. I'll give you a free agent and a person in the draft that I would like. Free agent. I've talked about Allen Robinson a lot, but I'll talk about somebody else instead. Joe Thuney. He's someone who I really think can hit the free agent market because the Patriots aren't going to be able to pay everyone. They franchise tagged him, and he's due for a big-time contract. So I'll say if he hits the market, I would go all in on him. I loved him last year in free agency. Unfortunately, didn't get there for the Jets. I think the Jets would have broken the bank for him at that point. And then in the draft, I think you get Rashad Bateman with the second Seattle pick, with the second pick in the first round, which is the Seattle pick. Then I think that would be a monster start to the Trevor Lawrence era. Next up is Jeff. And thank you so much, Marcus, for checking in. Next up is Jeff in Jersey, wants to talk about Patriots and Week 17. Boy, this is a common concern.
Hey, Matt, it's Jeff from New Jersey. I've called before, and I have never rooted so hard for this team to lose before. Every Sunday, especially the one against the Raiders, it's been nothing but anxiety about the first drive because they score every time. And I get nervous. I'm like, which Sam Darnold are we going to see this game? But we haven't seen the really good one this season. But anyway, I am petrified about this Week 17 game against the Patriots. I shouldn't be, because if you look at the numbers, the Patriots are better than us. But it looks like they're not going to the playoffs. I fear they're not going to have anything to play for, and they might start Stidham. And this thing, this scares me because if the Jaguars don't win another game and the Patriots beat us, I'm going to be pretty annoyed. But I just, part of me thinks, well, Belichick's not going to lose to an 0-15 team. So I don't know, Matt. Please help me feel better. And as always, go Jets.
Appreciate it. I understand where you guys are coming from on that. I get it. Belichick is not bad enough. Even with Stidham, they'll find a way. They will. This Jets team is so bad every week. And I said it earlier, but I'll repeat it here. This team on the road, the only close game that they played on the road this year was that Chargers game. And they really had no business being in that game, but the Chargers are going to Chargers. We'll go through right now. I'm pulling up the Jets schedule right now as we speak. I will go through each one of their road games. We'll briefly discuss how it went. We know in Week 1, Buffalo 27-17 loss. In that game, it didn't feel close until a garbage time touchdown late. So 27-17. Against Indianapolis, they lost 36-7. Darnold threw for 168 yards in that game. At Miami, they lost 24-0. Their quarterback threw for 186 yards. It was Joe Flacco. Against Kansas City, they lost 35-9. Sam Darnold threw for 133 yards. Here's the close one. At Los Angeles, they lost 34-28. And that's how many points difference? That is a 6-point loss. Is the closest loss that they've had. 40-3 was the other. So in, let's see, 6 games, they've lost by 37, 6, 35 minus 9 is 26. Right? This is not a math podcast. 26, 24, 29, and 10. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about that game. Thank you, Jeff. And hopefully I eased your anxiety there. Last one's Greg from New York, and he's got some reaction.
Hey, Matt, it's Greg from New York. I'm just calling to express how I feel about what's transpired over the last
Let's hear it.
13, 14 weeks. It's nice to be in the running for a player such as Trevor Lawrence, but my God, the product they're putting out there is just straight embarrassing as a fan, and I can only imagine how the players feel. And even if we get Trevor Lawrence, honestly, I don't trust this ownership to put the right pieces to make this even work with Lawrence. To be honest with you, it seems like they're more focused on making toxic baby powder than they are putting out winning programs together that can compete year after year. It's embarrassing. I've dealt with it for years now. I don't know I hope they don't ruin the situation. I think it's too good of a chance to be ruined by these guys. Again, thanks for taking my call, Matt.
Yeah, of course, anytime. I really appreciate it, Greg. I understand the concern with not putting Trevor Lawrence in a position to succeed, and I love the dig at the Johnsons and their baby powder and their awful products and their awful decisions, but a prospect like Trevor Lawrence gives you a lot of hope. Look at the Texans, for example. They are not run well at all. They're not. But with Deshaun Watson, they overachieved early. And maybe they could course correct a little bit and course correct quickly because of Deshaun Watson. But the last 3 years have been rough for what they did to Sam Darnold. But I do see a light at the end of the tunnel here. And if they get this hire right, that's all that matters. They have to get the head coaching hire right. And from there, things should start to fall into place. So thank you guys for tuning in to episode 44 of Just Jets. Another one in the books. Only 3 more games to go. We are in the home stretch here. Once again, I'm Matt O'Leary. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you consume this, and I'll talk to you next time.